This video was brought to you by Stormberg, a better route planner, MisterGreen, Kempower and Marcus Bil. Yo, what's up? Today I'm going to talk about the 1000 kilometer challenge. So I have a few comments I want to give you guys. First of all, there is this Andreas guy from Deutschland. He runs the 1000 kilometer test. And then some people confuse that with my 1000 kilometer challenge. So I should explain that the 1000 kilometer challenge that I made is to simulate a typical scenario where you drive through European highways. It could also be American highways, but the main point is that we drive on motorway where the speed limit is 120, 110 kilometers per hour, and you cruise maybe a little bit faster than that, like the traffic always flows at. And then we see how long it takes. So it means that you actually have to follow speed limits. And we also have a stretch where we pass through Gothenburg twice, which is a city, and then the speed limit over there is somewhere between 80 and 100, and then also some 60 zones. So that means, real world scenario where you drive and you follow some speed limits. You don't drive on unrestricted autobahn. And then I get a time, and that's what I think is realistic when you travel, when you take a road trip from, let's say, Oslo to Copenhagen, or from LA to San Francisco, or somewhere else where you have those highways. But again, this is not the same as going on the Arctic Circle run, which has way lower speed limits and way worse roads. And then this Andreas Hanel, I think that's his name, he makes this, I think he called it 1000 kilometer challenge before, but I think from, maybe you heard it from me via live stream, I criticized him for calling it that, and then he changed it to 1000 kilometer test. But that is different because he then drives on unrestricted autobahn, maybe usually at night or evening, where he could just unleash the power. And then of course most cars he will test then nowadays, which charges fast, will then go way faster than my 1000 kilometer challenge. And then whatever time he gets cannot be directly compared to my test, because it's different. It's as if I would drive at 120 kilometers per hour on the motorway, and then I compare it against the VLTP, and I say, oh man, this car has so poor range compared to VLTP. Well, it's two different test scenarios, right? And that's the same thing with the 1000 kilometer challenge, and then the Andreas. So just bear that in mind, because when you test many German cars, then of course they will go faster on the Autobahn. But if you also test a Model 3 and you can actually unleash the power and go at 170 kilometers per hour, which I would never dare to do in Sweden and Norway anyway, then of course you will also get better times. So just bear that in mind. All right, and then next topic is about deduction. So normally I wouldn't care about making a separate video about this, but I've seen so many comments. I'm actually a little bit surprised why people comment about this in the Porsche, the fat Taycan, they say, oh, you shouldn't deduct problems with handshake. You shouldn't deduct. And people didn't even understand what was going on, even though I'm very thorough when it comes to documenting everything, what happened. I also watched videos from other YouTubers on different places, different continents. And when I watch those tests, I'm looking for, hey, what happened to the charging session? How long did you charge roughly? What was the charge? They just sit in the car and talk rather than showing the charging screen, showing how many percent they arrive with, showing more data. So when I see those so-called tests, I wonder what went wrong, what happened. And then, but for my test, I try to document everything, explain what happened, what's going on with the charging and everything. And then we have the deduction. So why do we have the deduction? I introduced the deduction roughly 1 to 2 years ago. Actually, before that, I call it subtraction. And then I changed the word because many people, including myself, we have grammar. We say subtract, but it's actually subtract. Yeah, very common mistake, just like a lot and your and Teslas. Tesla plural. Yeah, okay, whatever. Let's not do a grammar Nazi session here. But anyway, so this you can already see that this video is a little bit unscripted. But what's up with the deductions? So remember that when I do 1000 kilometer challenge, I'm testing the car. So I want to see how fast the car can go within the constraints, speed limits and everything, right? And then if some irregularity happens, let's say unfall, like what happened with the Model Y yesterday. There was an accident and we were stuck for roughly 27 minutes. I counted 27 minutes. Then, you know, we have to correct for it, because accidents does not happen every time. And just put it this way. If, for example, the Model Y run, if we don't deduct accidents or whatever that happens, and we just count it as it is, right? It's part of the road trip, well. And then when I do another run with another car, let's say a Porsche, and I don't have any accidents there, then it could seem like the Porsche is way faster than the Model Y, which is not the case, right? You know what I mean? But then what about other problems that occurs, like handshake problems? Well, let's take the issue at Ioniq Helsingborg. Some of those tritium chargers, they are troublesome. If you haven't noticed, if you actually watch many of my 1,000 kilometer challenges, you will see that when I drove there, when I went there with the Volvo C40, this was at night, by the way, it was a night run. And then at night, I was cleaning the windscreen or something, and then suddenly I noticed it after a while that the charging stopped. And then the same thing happened with the Porsche at Ioniq Helsingborg. I think I even used the same charger when that happened. So then, you know, it boils down to, when we have charger problems, like the charger stops, is that something we should not deduct? I think we should deduct it, because it's an irregularity. Normally when you go to Spekkeret, or you go to Varberg, those chargers don't stop, but the charger at Helsingborg has some problems. And then you can't just assume that, okay, if you're taking a trip from Oslo to Stockholm, you will encounter faulty tritium chargers on Ioniq or somewhere else that will stop. So that's why, at least that one, I deduct it, because it's not something, it's random. That's what I'm saying, it's random. But one thing I don't deduct is the slow handshake problem. And people think I deducted handshake, well, slow handshake time, but that was not the case. I never said that I deducted that one. I complain about that it's slow to handshake, yes, but I didn't deduct it. The Porsche was really slow at just authenticate with the whole plug and charge. You saw it in real time. It was super slow to just authenticate and then whatever. But also keep in mind that one thing is that when you have 800 volt systems, there needs to be extra safety checks, sanity checks before you unleash the power on those high power chargers. That's one of the reasons why the handshake takes slightly extra longer time versus other 400 volt. I don't know if you ever noticed, when you plug it in a 50 kilowatt charger, the handshake goes way faster than those HPCs. So just bear that in mind. But then as for Tesla is blistering fast for taking for doing the handshake. It could be because they make some shortcut, because they have, you know, homogeneous, what do you call it, well, they used to have it at least. They have Tesla hardware and in the charger, Tesla hardware in the car, and they can just make it super smooth, super fast. Which might not always conform with many of the maybe not regulations, but maybe the standards. I'm not sure about that one. About deductions. But one other thing is that when I have handshake problems, I always deduct them, because that's also another irregularity. Now, how fair is it to deduct handshake problems? Because I have to explain more here. Many legacy automakers, they have problems with handshake. And why does it happen? It could be various other reasons, but one very common problem is that the charge plug placement, the angle of the plug or something, or the charge size, I meant the charge port of that car might be in that, or it could actually be also at the charger. There's a slight slope or something like that. I discovered this a couple of years ago. I think it was with Polestar, that sometimes, many times the handshake would fail at Ioniq or tritium chargers. And why did it fail? It's simply because the tritium chargers, they are they're 800 volt, 350 kilowatts. So those plugs, those cables, they have to be really heavy. And when you just plug it in without holding anything, doing anything, the weight of the plug. Okay, let me just explain. Let's say this is the car, this is the Ioniq plug. The weight of the plug pulls the plug a little bit downwards, maybe. And if you ever seen the CCS plug, the top of it, it's the one for the Type 2 for AC charging, but the top part is also where the communication happens. The bottom part is once communication has started, finished, then the DC flows on the lower parts, which means that if you have a slight angle, the communication part might not have good enough connection. There's some connection, but it might fail a little bit, might be packet loss or something like that, and then the handshake fails. So the trick I learned is that for many cars, what you want to do is when the handshake happens, you push and hold the plug against the car, and that usually helps. And then okay, this doesn't happen, or almost never happens, when you use 50 kilowatt fast chargers, because those 50 kilowatt Phoenix contacts, they're way lighter, and the cable is also way lighter because you don't need that much power. But you see, this is random, because if you just happen to park in a slope where you get the weight towards the plug, then you don't have handshake problems. And then some other places, maybe the angle of the plug or the slope of the whole parking lot is a little bit the wrong way, and then you have handshake problems. And also I noticed that some legacy automakers, they almost have, they don't have any problems with handshake. You don't have to hold anything and it will just work. I think that was actually the case for Porsche. I almost never have to do anything. But then there are other cars that are problematic, like Polestar, like Audi e-tron, fat e-tron. Everyone, well, I mean, at least some experienced people who owns fat e-tron, they know that you have to hold the plug a little bit during handshake, and then it will work. So you see, handshake problems is so random. It depends on location and everything. So that's why I think it's not fair to deduct it. And then, okay, but if you don't deduct it, it's fair to deduct it, sorry. Because you can say, well, we should have the scenario where we don't have to do anything. We don't have to hold the plug into the charger. Well, in that case, sometimes it will never happen. I mean, it will never connect, or it will never finish the handshake, simply because I tried it. Trust me, I tried it. Like, there are times when I tried 4, 5, 6 times without holding it, and then it didn't work, and then suddenly when I held it, it worked. So then what do you say? You just throw the car on the ocean? Yes, because the car is kaput. But actually I also heard that you can change this via software, even though the connection might not be 100%, but maybe if you change the software so that you have a higher tolerance against packet loss, or you try to resend, or I don't know how they do it, but there is a way to maybe fix some of this or try to mend it. But okay, so enough about handshake. What else is it? Traffic. Okay, we should deduct traffic. You guys agree with that one? We should deduct handshake problems. What else? I actually started deducting for traffic also, because I mean, I will usually have some tolerance for traffic, of course, because that's a natural part of the test. But however, again, we are talking about irregularities here. It was a couple of weeks ago during it was that Porsche run. It was during Pinse, a weekend, a long weekend, public holiday, and the traffic was way higher than normal. Like when I travel on my 1,000 kilometer challenge on a Saturday morning, the traffic will be flowing fairly well, but that day it was so damn slow. The Norwegians, they don't understand how lane discipline works. They were just camping in the left lane. Fortunately, this is what it boils down to. I have good data, so I know how long it's supposed to take on maybe not a perfect run, but a normal run. I know that I will average 116 to 117 kilometers per hour from Oslo to Spekerød. And then when I saw the time with the Porsche, it was 1 hour and 18 minutes versus it's supposed to be 1 hour and 12 minutes. So that's why I deducted 6 minutes because of traffic. And you could say, well, but then when you drive slower, you have a lower consumption. That's true, but for the Porsche, the Porsche charges so fast that if you do the math, if you save 5 watt-hours per kilometer, it will only differ 1 minute. So, okay, maybe it was unfair to deduct 6 minutes. Maybe it should have been 5 minutes, but we're just, pixel peeping right now. But again, it depends on which car it is. If it's a van, for example, if I was driving a Mercedes EQV and that doesn't charge that fast, then I will of course look at that in a different. You have to look at each case individually. And also, what else is it that I have good? Yeah, when it comes to the whole the eco charge that I accidentally put on, it was on when I got the car, and at first I didn't know where it was. But that one also, I again documented it that I lost 2 minutes at Spekkerød, and I lost another 5 minutes actually at Varberg. And how do I know? Well, because I have a perfect charging session, how it should be, which we were also getting later in the afternoon when I found out about that feature and I disabled it. I know how fast it's supposed to go, and then I also know how fast it took because I documented everything in the video. So that's why I was sure that I can deduct 7 minutes. And I don't know if it was clear to you guys, but when I said 5 minutes or 3 minutes in the video, it was actually 7 minutes. Oh shit, the sun is coming out now. Okay, well, it's going to be a little bit bright, but that's fine. So yeah, so that's the thing, that I'm sitting on lots of data. I've been doing 1,000 kilometer challenge for a long time, so I have lots of data. And some people also say, but you know, you should just redo the whole run. No, I'm not going to redo the whole run. First of all, I have the car. Usually I have the cars for limited time, and I'm already spending 10 hours maybe roughly to do the test, and I will not redo it just because there was a little bit of rain or a little bit of traffic or something else. It just boils down to that I have good data of how long it's supposed to take, and I can calculate and I can precisely correct for it. And you know, this is not something unique, but that I do corrections. When I was at the Nokian testing ground up in near Ivalo, and I tested those tires, they also do corrections. You know, because the weather changes, the temperature rises or drops, and when they test tires, they first do a reference test before, and then they test the different tires, and then they do a reference test with the same tire afterwards, and they figure out if there is any difference, if the weather conditions have changed, and then they actually apply the changes to the tests. And that's roughly what I also do. I apply corrections so that we have as consistent runs as possible. Ideally, I should do these runs at night, because in general, when I do 1,000 kilometer challenges at night, there are way less deductions because, you know, less traffic and less possibility of anything happening. But for obvious reasons, I cannot run at night now because I have a newborn baby. She's doing fine, by the way, Isabel. So that's why I have to do it in the daytime. And in general, I see that the view count in daytime is higher because that's when people are awake, not you know, 5, 4, 2 at night. So anyway, what else did we forget now? Deductions. Yeah. Okay. I should mention, because it seems like many people are, when the Porsche had lots of charging issues, they say, oh, that's the part of the plan, right? Or that's the part of having a Porsche. Or charging queues also, Laderstau. When I deduct for Laderstau, again, people say, they disagree. They say, no, it's a part of the whole ownership of a non-Tesla. Well, but you see, when at Spekkerød and at Varberg, we used to have 4 stalls there. So when I did a run there with 4 stalls, we had Laderstau. But then Ioniq recently upgraded Spekkerød and Varberg to have 6 stalls, and now suddenly the probability of getting any Laderstau is way lower. So will it be fair then if when I drove, for example, when I drove the Volvo and I had Laderstau and had to wait 5 minutes, and we don't deduct the 5 minutes, but when I drive the Porsche, for example, and then I don't have any charging queues, then it would look like the Porsche gets a 5-minute advantage. You see? So this is why I also deduct Laderstau or charging queue. What else did I deduct? There's so many things here. But anyway, yeah. So when it comes to charging problems, it's very easy for Tesla fanboys to stay on the high horse and say, charging problems with other cars and charging queues, we shouldn't deduct them because we have no problems with Teslas. That is not true. I've been driving Teslas for a lot, and I've seen problems with Tesla also. Some stalls, they simply don't work. I don't know why. Nowadays you can kind of see it. They would show you actually they might not show you. They would just say, yeah, you can see it in the screen. But if you don't pay attention, there might not be any indication that the stall is kaput, and then you have to move over. And also not only that, but the sneaky problem that Tesla tends to have is that, you know, for example, V2, especially V2. A V2 is supposed to give you 150 kilowatt best case, but I've seen roughly 140, 145 kilowatt on the V2. However, many times I go to a V2, I get only 110 kilowatt, and I'm thinking, huh? Is the battery too cold or something? And then I sit there for a bit, and then I figure out, okay, let's try to change stall. I change stall, boom, instantly I get 140 kilowatts. So I was like, okay, so obviously there was something wrong with that stall, with that plug or something, I don't know. What else have I encountered? Yeah, that's pretty much it. So which means that Teslas, they also have problems. And every time I drive 1,000 kilometer challenge with a Tesla and I get some Tesla problems, I also deduct those times. So that's why I ask you guys, why don't you realize that when we drive a Porsche and we have slight charging problems, that like irregularities, we should also deduct them, because for the Tesla case, we also deduct them, right? So yes, what else? Did I forget anything now? Yeah. So this is a whole explanation. Why do we keep deducting stuff? Because we want to make it, again, like I said initially, we want to make the run as consistent as possible, so that when we retest something, we will get the same result, right? That's the whole point of it. When we retest VLTP in a lab, we will get the same result if we do it 1 year later with the exact same car, right? So, and also my point is that if someone else does it in a different stretch, or I don't know, they should also be getting more or less the same result. And one very good, very strong indication that the consistency is there is that the e-tron GT has the same battery, has very similar, actually one of the same drivetrain, even very similar drivetrain. e-tron GT made it in 9 hours and 35 minutes, but that was in Norway. But the Fat Taycan did it in 9:40, so this was just 5-minute difference, you see. But if I didn't deduct for anything, then suddenly it would look like maybe the e-tron GT was done at night, by the way. Maybe the e-tron GT would do it in 9:35, and then the Fat Taycan would do it in 10 hours. People will be thinking, huh? Why? Oh, so the Taycan, the Audi is better than Porsche. Yeah, because the Porsche was half an hour slower than the Audi. No, that was not the case, you see. So I don't know if this makes makes any sense. If it, you know, you guys, yeah. But I think I'm done rambling. Sorry, I should have made a script, but I just felt like coming in here and talk about it, and you can see the nice. What the heck is this? This is not Millennium Falcon, by the way. This is not Millennium Falcon. It's not my car. I'm going to test it. There's something wrong with the battery. But okay, anyway, but yeah, this one works now. You see, I can show you here. You see, it works now. Yeah, no problem. But okay, so anyway, yes, eventually when I have time, I should make a separate video where I actually explain my test setup with different with different tests. I have the banana box test, the range test, you know, different tests. I should explain in detail what the whole purpose of that test is, and all the constraints, the whole test procedure. I can say, yeah, it's kind of like my own test. I created them for a reason, to measure something. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think that's going to be it. A long speech. Most of you guys have clicked out of the video already, but hopefully this explains it, why we apply the deductions. It's to make it as consistent and as reliable as possible, the results. So I think that's going to be it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, thank you for watching, and talk to you later.